Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Mark My Brain. I apologize for the delay between the uploads, but there have been some changes in my personal life, and also I have been sick, so I had to postpone it. But now I am excited to get back into it. So, in today's episode, the topic will be panic attacks. Mainly, what even is a panic attack for people who may not know? Why do they happen? What causes them? What can trigger them? And lastly, also how to sort of deal with them or how to self regulate if you find yourself having a panic attack or being susceptible to having them. Now, disclaimer, I don't claim to be an expert. I am not. I'm just somebody who unfortunately recently started having panic attacks, seemingly out of nowhere, and battling, more intense anxiety than than before. So I approach this subject from the point of view of amateur. I'm just trying to learn more about what the hell is happening and how to deal with it, I guess. So hopefully you'll find it interesting. I did quite a bit of research and try to put it together in some structurized manner. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. Let's begin by trying to describe what even is a panic attack. So in general, panic attacks are sudden episode of intense fear or panic that triggers severe physical reactions, even though no real danger or apparent cause exist. And they are associated with feelings of losing control, having a heart attack, and dying, etc. And panic attacks can have also many variations, and the physical symptoms may vary as well. Now, I have prepared a list that should summarize some of the typical symptoms. So typically, if you're having a heart attack, you might be feeling a sense of impending doom or danger, fear of loss of control or death, rapid heart rate, sweating, trembling or shaking, shortness of breath, chills, nausea, hot flashes, headache, dizziness, lightheadedness, or faintness, numbness or tingling sensations, feeling detached from reality. This all can happen. Of course, that doesn't mean that everything happens all at once. I guess it can vary from people to people. For me, for example, I definitely can relate to the sense of impending doom, the fear of loss of control, the rapid heart rate, sweating. I get really lightheaded and almost fainted even once. So that is something that's happening to me, for example. But as I mentioned, I guess it can be happening to. It can vary from people to people. Now, one of the worst things for me when I started having panic episodes last year that significantly impacted my physical health was that for quite some time I had no idea what was happening to me, which I think in turn led to increase in my overall stress, the anxiety and uncertainty, which of course only made things worse. For a few months, I was basically guessing, if what's happening to me is something to do with my stomach, if it's some neurological issue, if it's psychosomatic, etc. And this also leads me to my next point, which is the worry of getting another panic attack and the fear of losing control play a major role, especially if the fears are persistent or constant. They can cause the person to alter their day-to-day life in order to avoid situations that could potentially increase the risk of having another panic attack. And this can, of course, negatively impact that person's relationships, their social life, even job or hobbies. Unfortunately, this is something that fell on me pretty heavily, or that I felt pretty heavily, especially at first, because as I mentioned, I didn't even know what was happening to me. So I became afraid to do almost anything, which might sound silly, but if you are, if you are having these intense episodes of fear or breakdowns where your body just refuses to function and you have no idea what's happening, I feel is reasonable reaction, unfortunately. And I sort of lost trust in myself. I became sort of paralyzed in my life. I canceled vacations, trips, plans, social events, didn't do any physical training, which previously was very important to me. I stopped pursuing hobbies, for example, bouldering. I canceled hangouts with friends and etc. So, yes, anything extraordinary that didn't fall under the staying safe at home umbrella was challenge, or I perceived it as a challenge, which of course immediately brought some tension and didn't help with the feelings of anxiety or the inner unsettling feelings. Now, let's speak more about what can trigger an actual panic attack. The triggers can be external, for example, social situations, social events, situations that normally cause fear, for example, heights or needles, as well as individual performances like giving a speech or presentation. In addition, certain activities can stimulate the body in a similar way as an actual acute stress and activate the fight or flight response, which can cause panic-like symptoms that can in turn trigger a full-blown panic attack. The typical examples of such activities are excessive intake of caffeine or intense physical exercise, also alcohol abuse or some withdrawals. Now, from my own experience, intense training definitely classifies. Even though it is something that I love doing, I have been doing it for many years, and consistent training and progress in the gym ultimately make me feel more fulfilled. It is something I want to actively pursue. It has also become something that I have developed a certain level of anxiety about, since physical activity and pushing myself during training have led to several very unpleasant panic episodes in the past. So now, almost every time I go work out, I get at least a bit anxious, tense, and feel a bit sick. And I think it's just because of that association, unfortunately. Which I should mention is something that I try to consciously argue with myself about. That, it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't have to be. And the training is something that, I love and want to do. But I guess subconsciously there is just that connection with such intense feelings of panic or fear, and feeling super sick in the moment, and the physical activity and the workout, that it's very, very hard to overcome. So again, here I can testify to the previous point about panic attacks altering someone's activities, hobbies, and life. Also, other thing I have noticed that can also trigger a severe anxiety or even a panic attack in me is being in a situation with sort of no escape. Even though it's a bit more abstract, situations where I have to do something, or maybe more precisely, have to bear something. For example, I have to stay in this train for the next 2 hours. I have to sit in this class until the bell rings. Or I have to stay at my work desk for the next 4 hours. These situations with, I have to do something or I have to bear something with seemingly no escape, that is something that has a significant effect on me. Maybe that's something more important to to my personal self-reflection, but still, I wanted to mention it as another example. So now we have sort of went over what are panic attacks and what can cause panic attacks. So finally, turning attention to what to do around panic attacks if you find yourself in a situation similar to me, for example. A study of 6 different types of panic attack treatments, from psychotherapy to some breath trainings to reprocessing, etc., found a common element to be immediate reduction in expectancy of panic attack, which sort of disrupts the cycle of fearing fear, which I guess is typical for panic and panic attacks. Also, the reduction of expectation of escalation of anxiety when panic attacks begins also has a significant effect in reducing or treating the panic attacks. Generally, modifying or managing expectations are regarded as placebo, but this particular study argues that it can be a specific treatment for panic attacks. So taking that into personal life, I guess it can be a good idea to at least try to argue it yourself or pose yourself the arguments of, I don't necessarily have to get another panic attack. Even if I do, it might not be as severe. There's no reason that it should escalate. Trying to argue yourself in that direction, even though, of course, the study talks about some clinical setting and treating this in with a professional. So from my point of view, it is also important to not let the panic take control of your life. Even though it's possible you'll have to make some concessions, maybe at least in the beginning, it's crucial to remain in control, or at least feel like you are still in control. That helps with keeping confidence in yourself and seeing you are still competent and able to do things. I found this can be done by doing baby steps in the direction you want to go, such as you can't really do a full powerlifting workout. Okay, you can still try some small light exercise, go for a short walk or stretch at home. Are you afraid of big social events and feel like they will trigger your panic the moment you enter? Okay, but let's try not to lose all social life. Schedule small hangouts, invite a single friend for a coffee, call with your close ones, etc. The point is to remember that you can almost always do something, and to try that, even though it very well may be difficult. I have found, for example, that hangouts and other social activities actually really help take my mind off the almost constant worry and self-consciousness. Even though I may feel anxious beforehand, if I push myself a bit, it usually turns out great and much better than I anticipated. Seeing my friends, going to a hangout, having a dinner together, whatever. And the more I do it, the more regularly I do it, the easier it becomes. And usually also my overall level of anxiety lessens and well being increases, in general in my life, not just in the moment. So it may take a little bit of bravery on your part to push yourself out again, but it may very well be worth it 100 times over. Another thing I found helps is making sure you take good care of yourself. Meaning, you sleep well and long enough, you eat well, you aren't hungry during the day, allowing yourself rest if you need one, making sure you are not being too cold in the winter even. Because for me, again, this is from my own experience, these physical and physiological stressors can for sure don't help when it comes to panic attacks. Also, one of the study I've read talks about that the panic attacks can be triggered by sort of positive feedback loop between physical arousal or physical sensation in the body and then the reaction to it. And in my mind, that looks something like, it starts small. For example, you are feeling a bit of muscle fatigue or feeling a bit tired in the moment. And instead of just brushing it off, your body for some reason, or your mind, I don't know, for some reason reacts in a pretty intense way. It sort of panics, I guess. And, that intense reaction triggers some physical response in your body again. So you might start sweating. And because the physical sensation increases, it also increases the reaction on your subconscious part. So again, it increases the physical sensations, and again, that increases the panic you're feeling, etc., etc., and it sort of spirals out of control. At least that's how I understand it. So tying it back to the taking good care of yourself, eliminating or trying to avoid the unnecessary physical stressors, the hunger, fatigue, trying to sleep well, trying to eat well, etc., feels like a natural step to decreasing the probability of having to deal with the panic. Additionally, if we are talking about fighting panic attacks, I came across a study that suggests that, at least for some people, dissociation plays a significant role in panic attacks. Dissociation when your mind or your psyche tries to shield you from some usually typically traumatic event is something that unfortunately can then trigger panic attacks, apparently. So consciously addressing the situation one is being shielded from, situations that trigger the panic attacks, the fear-causing situations, can help tackle the anxiety disorder and even help stop the panic attacks from happening, according to this study. I think that's probably a good idea, getting to the bottom of your triggers. And I also think it's something that's probably best done with the help of a professional. So last but not least, you can also try meditation. For example, I've downloaded the Headspace app and found it has some effect. For example, it helps me fall asleep faster, or even during the day, some 5-minute meditation or something can help just, take your mind off of things and relax a bit. Basically anything that makes you feel generally more at ease, I think, is worth exploring. And with that, I think we've reached the end of the episode. We covered a lot today, so good job if you stayed till the end. I hope you found the information helpful and what I talked about interesting. Let me know, of course. If you are someone experiencing panic attacks, remember that you are not in it alone and that it will get better. I believe it. So take care of yourselves now and bye.